Okay. Seriously, how do you get this to trigger consistently? And also, you have to keep your distance because if you're too close to him, he can fire his acid, and it will break him out of this circle. This is how screwed up new Capcom is with a boss, and I can't believe people like this boss. Terrible environment, ambiguous detection on his acid attack, poor hitboxes on his other attacks, clunky detection on the QTE, too much life, terrible pathfinding. I mean, it is a recipe for disaster. This is exactly why this is a pre-alpha. Every part of this DLC is like this. This is what the developers of this pre-alpha were doing. Just walking around in a circle all clueless. With what to do, with the story, with the characters, with the gameplay, with the scenarios that you're put into. And so, to bypass this confusion, they designed so much of this around the merchant. Everything has an absurd amount of life for no reason. Everything is so resilient to stuns for no particular reason, and it's not complementary to this pre-alpha systems at all. Any developer with any bit of common sense would understand that, but apparently not. I've already acknowledged this many, many times in the main game of Resident Evil 4 Remilk, or sorry, the main pre-alpha, and this is a pre-alpha because the quality of this DLC is significantly lower than the main pre-alpha. There's so much more in terms of clueless designs, in terms of badly thought out scenarios, so many broken hitboxes, so many bad designs, so many moments where the environments and the enemy designs do not gel well together, just like with that stupid Garrador sequence before this so-called fight. And people want to say this is challenging? Are you serious? What is so challenging about this? You're getting your terms mixed up, people. You don't associate challenge with a broken experience made by clueless developers. What, you take damage all the time, or what? It's so easy to take damage from this guy, that's why it's challenging? You're not thinking of the deeper reasons for why you're taking damage? You know, like poor hitboxes, badly thought out environments, everything I've just listed? Everything like that. It's a joke. These people are case studies to inform others how to not be an idiot. That's why I keep their comments around, so that I can better myself as a gamer and as a reviewer, and as someone with a lot more common sense than the average individual praising this pre-alpha slash pre-alpha for the stupidest reasons ever, glamorizing it because, oh, we have hot women, oh, they're doing all these fancy action moves, oh, we're going to new areas? This DLC may have brand new areas and more of them compared to the original Separate Ways DLC, but they utilize them so poorly. So poorly. And if I seriously need to explain this to you guys, then what the hell is wrong with you people? There is no grasping the intelligence of these individuals at all. And they want to flaunt their, oh, I did professional S+, therefore I understand this better than you do. Just because you played the pre-alpha with those kind of conditions doesn't mean you understand anything. Simply playing a game is very different to the very idea of playing a game, analyzing it deeply, grasping the developers' mindsets, looking at how bad the environmental designs complement the enemy designs, bad hitboxes, other things like that. And I remember some moron being like, oh, it's games at the end of the day are supposed to be fun. Did you think that maybe by making a functional experience, you're automatically making a fun experience? A functional experience should come first, then you have the fun experience. That's normally the common sense route, dude. Whoever made that really stupid comment. Yeah, just because you did professional S+ doesn't mean anything. Even if you had proof that you did professional S+, I wouldn't have cared. Because I've seen so many times people just flaunt their restrictions to flash their dick, rather than just put that restriction aside and actually look at the gameplay experience for what it is. You think doing S+ on professional difficulty is somehow representative of what this so-called piece of content is? This ripoff of a DLC that reuses ideas from the original Resident Evil 4 and puts them into a paid DLC, and utilizes the ideas so poorly in this soulless slop of a DLC? This is unreal, guys. This is really unreal. New Capcom has to be the most incompetent development team I have ever seen in gaming history. And there's a reason why I told them to go to hell, and that they have reveled so much in this hole that they have made, just burying Resident Evil within that. Like, they pretty much dug their own graves, pretty much. Just the lack of care, the lack of any sense of creativity, the lack of any respect towards the original Resident Evil 4, and respect to game development. I mean, there are clear signs that this pre-alpha was rushed out the door by money-hungry executives playing upon nostalgia, and yet you are still willing to buy into this shit? And I know someone's gonna be like, why did you buy into this shit? Well, because I wanted to see the poor quality for myself, and seeing it through my own eyes and through my own gameplay is far more meaningful than seeing someone else play it. Because they're not learning the gameplay experience the way I am. They're not processing the experience the same way I am. They're not actually applying any sense of intelligence the same way that I'm doing it. And yet people want to say, "Oh, I'm not speaking the truth." I just can't rationalize how there are people out there that think this is good. I cannot rationalize that kind of situation where people somehow think the story, the writing, the character portrayals, the gameplay, the bosses, the weapons, and the fact that they designed so much of this around the merchant, leading to new Capcom delivering more shoddy quality because they just decided to use the merchant system to bypass all sorts of poor designs and not actually put a lot of effort into their work. If they supposedly love Resident Evil 4 and they wanted to remake it, they should have done a much better job than this, but apparently not. I just feel like they designed Resident Evil 4 Remilk and this DLC to play upon the potential hatred people have towards the original Resident Evil 4, and I guess they share that same hatred. Because this is not how you reimagine Resident Evil 4. I mean, what's with the whole hallucinations? What's with the fantasy aspects? What's with these really crappy redesigns of bosses? What's with these idiotic characters? What's with this ridiculous story? What's with these throwaway ideas and scenarios that I've already laid out in my blind playthrough of this DLC? You can't tell me new Capcom cares about Resident Evil. You can't. Where is your evidence? Where is your foundation that you built up to even complement this ridiculous argument that new Capcom still cares about Resident Evil? This is how they care about Resident Evil? Are you serious? What were they trying to go for with that? I'm just gonna take the time to look at my phone while he's just walking around in a circle, or she in this case, because that somehow matters. I still can't believe how underwhelming U-3 is. So much life, so many dumb attacks, so many bad hitboxes, fighting her in this badly designed environment. Why is it so tiny? Why are there so many places to clip on? Yeah, supposed challenge here and there. I mean, come on, guys. You must be telling jokes at this point. You've got to be, like, joshing me right now. I still remember that one stupid comment saying that because my accuracy is so bad, I mean, and how they even define bad accuracy, I have no idea. That's why U3 was terrible for me, but he's still good. Yeah, accuracy has anything to do with his crappy AI, his really shitty hitboxes, the ambiguous attacks where even when you seemingly avoid them, they don't work correctly. Like that one Acid movie does where he fires those pustules directly at you, and even with the methodology of running out of the way, like running to the left or to the right at the right moment, you still get hit randomly out of the blue because apparently the distance you are from her matters because depending on whether you're close to her or not, she fires the projectiles in a different sort of way as she's firing them towards you, and that's what allows you to get out of the way. But if you're too far away from her, it doesn't work properly. Like they didn't even think of that when designing that stupid move. I'm amazed that my U3 video for that part of the blind playthrough has more views. I mean, I have like 536 views. That's way more than my other videos for separate ways. You say the right thing, you attract all sorts of attention, even the wrong sort of attention. I honestly wish I could declare war on new Capcom and their bad practices. I mean, I know the game environment is a very toxic field, and especially in Asia, because I know that the work practices in Japan and other countries like that is far more toxic than the United States' environments because of the way the work schedules were handled, among other things. But I never thought new Capcom would ever be that kind of environment, but apparently it is. Because this really feels like a piece of content designed by burned out developers, where people just so overworked with crunch that they just release a half-assed product. And if that is the case, and that's the reason for why this DLC has so many problems, and it's just so many problems to the point of you have to have skipped out on your fundamental step process when designing your experience, then that is absolutely shocking that that is the case. And it's still hard to believe how much life U3 has. I had like the fully upgraded shotgun at one point because I was just testing it. It does like 12 or 16 damage, I believe. I don't remember what the value was. But like, oh no, it was 12, I believe. And it still took like 21 shots from the shotgun, and I still can't believe they restrict the shotgun to the merchant. Yet so many of the scenarios in this pre-alpha feel befitting for the shotgun. And the shotgun's a fundamental weapon in a Resident Evil title. Why would you restrict that kind of weapon to the merchant when you've clearly designed a lot of your mechanics and enemy types around the shotgun? That's how it is in the base experience of the main pre-alpha. Why would they do that? I don't understand. It makes no sense. Instead, you're having to rely upon the TMP that has very little stopping power, but definitely a little bit more stopping power than this pistol. And I don't understand why everything is so artificial and so gamey now, where everything is just tied behind arbitrary damage values like you're in a game. Not like realistic feedback whatsoever, where one shot actually stuns the enemy in the correct sort of way. How do people not realize that level of inconsistency with the stuns is not befitting for a fast-paced Resident Evil title like this? If you're talking about like the slowest enemies possible in a Resident Evil title, the idea of inconsistent stuns would likely not be such a big deal, but it would still be stupid either way because that's not the kind of design philosophy that Resident Evil ever favored in the prior games, once Resident Evil 4 came out. But there is just nothing separating Resident Evil from other like low-quality games out there at this point. And just think, guys. Back in the days of Resident Evil 4 OG, we had games like Dead Space, for instance, and Resident Evil 4 is a lot better than Dead Space for sure. But now in this remake age, Dead Space Remake is better than Resident Evil 4 Remilk. How? Dead Space Remake has incredible systems, so much creativity put into it, memorable environments, good writing, good storytelling, and they actually incorporated lore from Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3 into Dead Space Remake. New Capcom doesn't even do that with their own lore. They didn't take lore from Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, or like with certain key individuals, and incorporate them into files in Resident Evil 2 Remilk. Like, can you imagine if they mentioned Simmons from Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 2 Remilk, given that he was one of the individuals that authorized the launch of the nuclear weapon against Raccoon City? Do you have any idea how cool that would have been as storytelling? But they don't even do that. They didn't do that for Resident Evil 3 Remilk. And they didn't do anything for Resident Evil 4 Remilk at all. This feels like such an isolated story content, and because of this, this allows them to get away with violating the lore in this alternate timeline. Or I don't know if they're even trying to consider the remakes a part of the canon timeline or not. Because everything we have seen in Resident Evil 4 Remilk violates everything about the Plaga. Like, why do the Plagas now have fantasy capabilities? What's with the Crimson Flames, the Blue Flames, the Black Liquid? And Ada got infected by this Passanta, who launched a pustule at her, and she got hit by acid in the arm, and immediately she's experiencing hallucinations. Are we to assume U-3 is some kind of breeder? Since when do Plagas need to be breeded? And I thought they were breeded from the Queen Plaga at one point. In Resident Evil 4 OG, and then you had the fossilized remains of the Plagas in the mines. Like, if she inhaled spores or something, I could understand that. Or if she was captured, like she was in the original Separate Ways DLC, and implanted with the Plaga, I could understand, but they do absolutely nothing with her infection with the Plaga at all. And she somehow manages to get it out of her by killing Passanta, which is not how the Plaga works at all. And then you have this superior species Plaga, and apparently Krauser was injected with the superior species Plaga, and the Amber, it's so unclear what it is. It's called the Holy Body, apparently. But it doesn't even seem like a life form. It just seems like some kind of amplifier to control the other parasites. What exactly is it? Because I thought the Amber was originally containing the superior species Plaga, but apparently it's not. And Krauser was injected with the superior species Plaga, but like his mutation doesn't seem any different to Sadler's mutation, even though he has the dominant Plaga. It's like, why do you have that distinction between the superior species Plaga and the dominant Plaga if it doesn't serve a purpose in the end? I seriously do not understand what they were doing. I made a review slash retrospective of Resident Evil Village that was 166 pages. And I had to look back at individual pages to make sure I wasn't repeating anything, that I wasn't contradicting myself or anything. And apparently new Capcom can't even do that. And that was a 7-hour review. But to write a DLC that is seemingly like the same amount of time, how do you make these kind of mistakes? How do you make these kind of basic mistakes? It makes no sense at all. Like, I've never seen a more fractured, amateurish development team in my entire life. And whoever directed this is Yoshinori someone. He's the worst director of a Resident Evil title by far. And I thought Ample-san was already bad enough with Resident Evil 4 Remilk. And I can't believe Ample-san could make an amazing Resident Evil title with Resident Evil 5 and tell a much more interesting story, have better gameplay mechanics, and actual challenging gameplay compared to Resident Evil 4 Remilk, which has this false idea of challenge by using poor designs and wears them like medals, apparently. Like, what happened to you, Ample-san? How the mighty have fallen. I guess I should be glad he didn't direct this DLC and make himself look even more stupid. There is just no hope for Resident Evil at this point if this is what the quality of the Resident Evil titles are going to be from now on. Because new Capcom doesn't want to contribute to any hard work at all. They want to contribute to half-assed products that they know their fan base will laugh up, because their fan base requires very low standards, apparently. And they don't even understand what a fun experience or a functional experience is. I can't wait for these morons to come up with the most ridiculous defenses ever defending this pre-alpha. Because I've already dealt with several individuals already. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just worthless. The most pig-headed individuals protecting the most pig-headed development team ever. That's all I really have to say right there.